everyone and welcome back to Women Incorporated. Today we are honored to have Mrs Jahnabi Phookan, who is a multifaceted and a successful businesswoman. She's been an entrepreneur for over 3 decades, specializing in the textiles, travel and hospitality and tea industries, all of which empower the livelihoods of the young people, especially women and their communities. She is a graduate of Calcutta University, a postgraduate from Indian Institute of Mass Communication, and an alumni of the Indiana University, USA. Welcome to my show, Mrs. Jahnabi Phookan. We are very happy to have you on Women Incorporated. How are you doing today?
Very well, and thanks very much for having me on your show, Women Incorporated.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Phookan, for those of us who don't know you, could you share a bit about your early life?
Well, Neha, I grew up in Calcutta. I was a Loreto House, Calcutta girl. But my father came back to Assam.
Right.
And the Guwahati Tea Auction Center was starting. He and Hemant Bora were the two Assamese companies who came back, who started what is the Guwahati Tea Auction Center today. It's over 50 years old.
Right.
And since then, I went to Loreto Convent, Shillong briefly. Then the asthma got to me there. Then I passed out from St. Mary's, Guwahati, went back to Calcutta for my college. And throughout, I think coming back to Assam and being here has brought me back closer to my family. We are originally from Sipsagar in Upper Assam, and my husband's family is from Jorhat, Upper Assam.
Okay, fantastic. Mrs. Phookan, could you also brief us a little about your husband, Mr. Ashish Phookan, and your children?
Yes, so my husband Ashish he came back to Assam. He'd also grown outside Assam, born and brought up outside Assam, largely. Then he joined J. Thomas and Company, which is then and still is the largest tea broking firm.
Right.
And he was the first Assamese to join. Like my father was the first batch of Indian tea brokers.
Very nice.
So I was back here and we got married in 81. Our 3 children, Antara, Aranya and Jay, they went to Assam Valley School. And we grew up here, and along the way, we started our company as well, Jungle Travels India.
Okay. Very nice, Mrs. Phookan. What or who inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it really is part of our genes. If I think, look, my grandfather, Profullo Sondra Borua, and my granduncle, Punu Borua, and my father, who gave up his career in broking and came back and started his own firm here.
Right.
I think we belong to a family of entrepreneurs. We wanted to do something different. And of course, with my husband Ashish, we always looked out of the box and wanted to do something different and wanted to give back and do something for our region.
Right.
So I think all that really spurred on my interest. I didn't consciously work to be an entrepreneur. It just happened along the way.
Wow, that's
enjoying
very
the journey.
Nice. Yes, yes, absolutely. Also, Mrs. Phookan, you have been doing very well when it comes to business. What's the secret behind you managing all your businesses so successfully?
Well, the one big secret I must tell you is that this is really entirely started by my husband. I will also take credit. We are co-founders.
Right.
But if it wasn't for Ashish and me, we worked very well in sync.
Right.
And what we've learned also is that over the years, we started in 1989.
Right.
We were, my husband and I, who was also in tea. I was the board housewife, a trained journalist who had come back and trying to started a company called Jungle Travels to bring tourists into the jungles of Assam.
Right.
2-man staff in 1989. So over 35 years, we are over 300 people now.
Right.
But thing is, the secret sauce is really in having a great team of people with you.
I
not
completely
to
agree.
micromanage,
Yes.
take people along with you,
Right.
and we've been very, very lucky.
Yes.
And we worked along the way, and the important thing is all our people, they've also enjoyed the journey with
Journey.
us.
Yes. Yes. That's
So
very
I think
important.
that's how we are still here, we are still relevant,
Yes.
and we still continue to do our work. And what is the Jungle Travels India is today morphed into the JTI group.
Correct. Also, Mrs. Phookan, in the handloom and textile space, you have been a blessing to many, especially women in rural areas. Could you give us a gist of this journey?
Yes, along the way, Neha, what had happened is that since 1989, when we started our company, Assam Jungle Travels, in
Right.
2003, we started the Assam Bengal Navigation Company,
Right.
first to bring in the long-distance river cruising into India. Then I think it was in 2007 that I was approached by the FICCI Flow president at that time, who was from Mumbai. She flew down, came to Assam when even there wasn't a FICCI office, that's the
Right.
Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Right.
She approached us, me and other women here as entrepreneurs, to start the women's wing of FICCI.
Okay.
So I was always like, oh, I don't have the time for this. I'm so busy with my own business.
Right.
How am I going to do that? She said, no, you must do it. And they said, okay. And that's how we started the Northeast chapter of FICCI Flow.
Okay.
And she also told us we have to look beyond your own business. And the first time I realized that it is possible to, and we must do, beyond our own business,
Right.
work for people around you.
Right.
I think that resonated with me a lot.
Yes.
Because my mother,
Yeah.
Lokshmi Borua, is a fantastic, entrepreneur in her own right as well.
Yes.
And so she is the one who started the first women's children's chess academy in Assam, in fact. So I think along the way, since Flow happened, and I got into that forming, I was a vice chairperson. 2008, I was the chairperson of Northeast.
Right.
And we were told, our brief was, work for a women's cause.
Okay.
That time, in India, the chapters were given the issue of female feticide.
Right.
And I was like, we are from the Northeast, we don't have that problem at
Yes.
all. But what is our problem? I looked around and we, brainstormed in it. Definitely, it was a human trafficking.
Right.
Human trafficking of our women. So that was where the crux was, I felt. And then handloom is an integral part
Yes.
of our economy,
Yes.
especially for women. So that was in those days it struck me that is that sustainable livelihood that I talk about so much now. And I said, let me get into that sector. And with that sector, there were so many stories along the way, but very
Right.
briefly, we started with the first shelter home for trafficked women.
Oh, wow.
And there I found a lot of looms, hand looms, but nobody was working on those
Working
looms.
on those.
When I asked the center, why is that so? They said, no, actually, we don't have anyone to train them.
Right.
And the women no longer know how to weave. They used to know as a child, but they were trafficked, they've come back, they don't know.
Right.
So with that, I went to Central Silk Board. And I was incredibly lucky with this person that time who took a call on it and said, yes, I will give you that master trainer.
Oh.
Not only that, I'll give you a woman master trainer who will stay with the girls. So except for the 1 year of mandatory that they gave,
Right.
he was so kind that he gave me 2 years of that training. And when these girls were rehabilitated and they're
Okay.
sent back to mainstream, it's so nice to know even today that the manager of that home tells me that those who got that training,
Right.
they have a skill.
Yes.
And they've been, gainfully employed.
Yes, I'm sure.
So with that, I met so many women, and that's how my journey in the handloom sector started.
All right. Very inspiring.
Yeah, I think I feel very grateful for that.
Yes, absolutely. Mrs. Phookan, you have been recently, a part of the W20 Summit. In fact, you represented the Northeast as a speaker and moderator. Could you, share with us what was the experience like over there?
Oh yes, the W20 is really something to, I feel incredibly lucky to have been
Right.
there. And just to tell you very briefly to our viewers is that the W20, for those who may not know, was the women's
20
voice
Summit,
for
yes.
G20. And it was, since India got the G20 agenda this time,
Right.
their primary focus was to ensure that all the gender considerations
Right.
is mainstreamed into the G20 annual report.
Right.
And to have, and to declare the policies of W20
Right.
so that, every policy across all Gamut
Right.
should go through the gender lens.
Yes.
It's
yes.
time that
Yes,
happened.
Yes, very true.
So W20 Aurangabad was the inception summit.
Okay.
And I was very thrilled to be part of it. I think
Right.
my work in FICCI Flow as a national president had
Right.
helped. In fact, Dharitri Patnaik, I must mention, was my, that time, the FICCI Flow, the Bhubaneswar chapter chair,
Right.
incredibly, experienced from UN.
Right.
And she was the chair coordinator for
Oh.
W20, but she knew about my work in the Northeast.
Right.
So besides my flow connection, FICCI Flow, it was because I guess of the years I had put in here
Right.
that I got that opportunity.
Right.
And then I was there invited as a speaker in the session which was on empowering women in the nano, micro and startup enterprises.
Okay.
I had formidable co-panelists like Virginia Littlejohn, Quantum Leap of US.
Okay.
I had Dr. Seven Zehra Kaya, who was the deputy chair of CARDEM, which is a Turkish organization for women.
Okay.
Then there was Natasha Majumdar from Amphori Network, representative from India.
India.
And we were moderated by Andrea Globoco Patel. She is the president of what is another strong women's body in Argentina.
Okay.
So that was an incredible experience, being able to talk about.
I know.
After all, we are a startup.
Yes.
I think the Jungle Travels India in 1989
Right.
was a startup. These are
Right.
the new terms, but
Right.
we've done it,
Yes.
done the grind, and now we realize. So
Right.
I was happy to talk about that story.
Yes.
The second opportunity came for the final summit.
Okay.
Because I missed the Jaipur summit. The final summit of W20 was held in Mahabalipuram
Mahabalipuram.
in
Right.
June this year. And there I was very privileged to be invited as a moderator this
Very
time.
nice.
And with a very prestigious, panel of women thought leaders.
Right.
And that session, which I moderated, was on economic empowerment
Okay.
of women through trade and investment.
Okay.
And my panelists were Dr. Shamika Ravi. She is the member of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister.
Okay.
She is also the W20 Communicate Drafting Committee member.
All right.
Then there was Anush there, Burgosian. She's the head of the WTO Trade and Gender
Right.
Office.
Right.
Basuri Swaraj, Sushma Swaraj's
Yes,
daughter.
yes.
And of course, advocate of Supreme Court and a W20 India delegate. There was Dr. Stephanie Oistrich, board member of the Harvard Kennedy School for Women's Network and the chief business officer for a company called Galecto.
Okay.
And there was Dr. Marina Glazatova. She was advisor to the scientific director
Right.
of the School of Economics of Russia. I'm mentioning these names because for me it was a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
And also to stand there and represent your country
Yes.
in this G20 summit was something I'm
always
extremely honored
cherish.
and take back. And the
Yes.
key priorities
Right.
of W20, under W20, under G20 was what India gave was
Right.
women entrepreneurship, grassroots women leadership,
Right.
bridging the gender divide, digital divide, education and skill development, and lastly, climate change.
Okay.
And women are impacted on all these sectors.
Right.
So that was what and the W20 agenda, I must tell you, was that leave no women behind.
Right. Absolutely.
So that was.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it was quite a proud moment for you
Yes.
representing the country. Also, I'm very curious to know, about your work as the 37th president of the FICCI Flow. In fact, I believe you were the only president representing the Northeast. Could you share a bit about that?
Yes, Neha, when we started the chapter of FICCI Flow in Northeast,
Right.
2007,
Right.
and in 2020, I became the 37th national president.
Right.
It was a great moment for me. It was the first president from Northeast India. In fact, I'm told that I'm first president of a National Chamber of Commerce,
Right.
man or woman from the
Right.
Northeast,
Yeah.
which is not a very happy, I mean, it's a sobering thought that you
Yes.
think that you should have been somebody from the Northeast before
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
In any case, I was there, and
Right.
though it became a COVID year,
Yeah.
I think we turned the crisis into an opportunity. And though it's a one-year run, in fact, we got less than a year, but I had a fantastic team of, chairpersons.
Right.
Across the country, we were 19 chapter chairs.
Okay.
And then we thought we'll work on few agenda and let's work on it. Among the prominent ones, I'll tell you, was the village adoption,
Okay.
which I hold very close to my heart.
Right.
And then though everyone was, how do we adopt a village in these circumstances,
Right.
COVID times? So we'll work through local NGOs.
Right.
And Dharitri, who was leading that initiative, she had a great trust of her own called
Right.
Hamara Bachpan Trust.
Right.
And they already had a great, roots on the ground. We wanted to do some legacy work.
Right.
The end of the day, end of the year, we had 143 villages adopted
Wow.
in my term,
Wow.
which continued after my presidency ended.
Right.
For the next 3 presidents, I've continued the work.
Okay.
And the great thing was, recently, my Bangalore chapter chair also sent a message
Okay.
that from her village, the Bangalore village,
Right.
the 2 girls who had also got education,
Right.
they topped their colleges in mechanical engineering and one in chemical engineering.
Wow,
And these
that's
are our adopted
impressive.
village girls,
Yeah.
So we're very grateful, and these are what we want to leave behind,
Right.
Each of us in women of so-called privilege and all, we have a responsibility towards
Correct.
society.
Correct.
And if in a body like Fiki Flow we could make this happen
Right.
and carry it on, that's been our legacy work, and we
Right.
are very proud of that. And
Right.
I owe a lot to my team.
Yeah.
I've learned that everyone wants to help, and everyone should help, and whatever's possible, we should all do a bit.
Right. Right. I know that was quite a lot you have
Yes.
done. Throughout your life.
Besides, that was just
Besides
that was
your,
the rural level.
Key
Then in the
businesses.
urban level, we were doing adopting. We adopted called ITIs, Industrial Training Institute.
Right.
All the chapters were looking at the ITIs.
Right.
And the corporate level, we were also training women to be women directors, go for
Right.
those programs. There's so many other things, but this is something I thought I'd mention.
Yes. Absolutely. And you did great by talking about it.
I feel, yes.
I'm sure
I owe it
many
to
of
all
us
them.
will be inspired hearing your story.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Phookan, what do you do when you're not at work?
The thing is, I never consider work as work.
Right.
It's really something I look up to, and I think we have, all of us, my husband, I, our children, we're all
Right.
boundless energy when it comes to work. We love what we do, so we
Yes.
don't think. But besides that, maybe listen to music loudly.
Okay.
And enjoy a lot of classical music, and
Right.
a lot of Indian, Western music, everything. We listen to music and really want to feel the need to be able to give back.
Right.
I'm also trying to work on for my grandfather, Professor Sondra Borwa. He was the first Assamese who got the long playing Assamese record.
Oh, wow.
So next year, 2024, will be 100 years of that.
100 years, yeah.
And it's a lot of people are involved in that. I must mention Umanando Dora, who has his first long playing record of my grandfather.
Right.
We want to talk about that, work on
Right.
that. And my
Right.
great-grandfather, who is Hongita Sajjo Lokhiram Burwa,
Right.
who annotated Assamese music into Hongit Khadhona
Yes.
and Hongit Kos.
Right.
So these are men whose, shoulders we have ridden on.
Yes.
And that is a big responsibility. Me as, I think, eldest in my generation,
Yes.
need to take forward for our
Take it
generation
forward,
and for
correct.
the people, our people
Right.
in Assam.
Right. Well, last but not the least, Mrs. Phookan, any advice for any aspiring women entrepreneurs out there?
See, I don't think I'm anyone to give advice, but yeah, I must tell everyone that do what your heart tells you to do, and you must remember there's no shortcut to
Right.
success.
Right.
And you must have passion, but you must also have a lot of compassion.
Correct. And you must love what you do.
And you love what you do, passion, compassion, and hang in there.
Yes.
It's a long haul, there's no shortcuts.
Right.
So if you think that, that I've been working since 1989, I think there's
Yes.
so much still to do.
Right.
so much to give back, so much to learn,
Right.
and you're learning every day.
Yes.
So in this university of life,
Right.
one should always remain a student
Right.
and you continue and love what you do.
I'm sure. Thank you so much, Mrs. Phookan, for your valuable time today. We are truly fortunate to have you on Women Incorporated. You're one in a million, and there's so much to learn from you.
Thank you very much, Neha, and wish you all the very best. And to all our viewers, thank you.
That's all for today, peeps. Until next time, toodles.